Welcome back to the most professional StarCraft 2 with the player ranked #1 in the world by Dark. In the blue, the final boss. It's Dark. Up against the former world champion. In the red, Oliveira. A best-of-3 Terran versus Zerg showdown. With Dark's controlled chaos going up against Oliveira's top-tier tactical Terran timings. In what is sure to be a dramatic display of good games for the fans. And if you'd like to see some more displays, it'd be awesome if you could help me pay tribute to the great gods of the algorithm by smashing that like button and maybe even subscribing. And Jimmy, what are we at? 1,429 likes on this video, and I'll cast another one. And I'll probably do it anyways. I don't know what else I'd do with my life. But thank you for watching. Hopefully you've had a good day so far. And hopefully it's about to get just a little bit better. Dark with the 3 hatch before gas, 2.5 blue, 1.5 gold. I mean, both sides have gone for it. We're on post-youth, and while that might be a personal attack on the people watching this, it's also our most turtly early game map, but can quickly fan out into dramatic aggression because you have these bases set up on the top of a ramp, and generally, in most cases, that means easily defensible. That single ramp protecting 2 bases, but the field is... This is rude. Wow. Well, the Reaper will make that hatchery mildly to moderately uncomfortable. Take away about 4% of the HP and 20% of its self-esteem. And move on out before the Queen can get anywhere close. So I'm sure Oliveira, noting that Dark has gone for this gasless, essentially the equivalent of doing a 3cc before starport. For Terran. And Dark actually spotted this isn't a 3cc build. He can't be 100% confident in that. But the fact that starport's already done. Did he see both gases mining? Yes. Having 2 gas and that starport done means there may very well be some unsavory Terrans on the way. But I repeat myself. So, 2 barracks in production behind us and straight up 2 base time. Oliveira not looking to try to reach out for a third. He's going to hit Dark. Well, Dark gonna go ahead and make himself a much more obvious target by slapping down the gold base, of course. He wants a full gold base. The downside of this, it's possibly the most tank pushable location on the map. The high ground looking directly down on it, the choke point with the gold minerals blocking it off. Very hard to dislodge that sort of location, and unfortunately for Dark, well, there's already tanks in production. This wasn't Hellion Banshee. This is just a good old-fashioned 2-base tank timing. So, Oliveira knows what he wants, and he's got a great idea on how to get it. Stim on the way. Those are naked racks right there. It's almost inappropriate to see them without an add-on. In very specific scenarios, though, it's allowed. And in this case, Oliveira clearly trying to get as much damage done as possible before Dark's economy could explode. And Dark is building 7 more drones, so I don't think he actually had any vision of this. He was in the himself about this push, right up until it showed up on his doorstep and started shelling his hatchery. Well, that hatchery may finish, and, well, the Queens are pulled off. There's a Viking here as well, but I think that was mostly for clearing out the Overlords to make sure there was no vision. There's no way to get vision of those siege tanks on the high ground without walking up there. The hatchery, dead and gone. It bought a little bit of extra time. But Dark's army and a Queen strayed from the pack. It's dangerous to go alone. So Dark will be beaten back, but not out, as 60 drones still. That base was a stretch goal indeed, as he still has 3 hatcheries and 62 drones. So Oliveira backing off here, clearly trying to... He's fearing the counterattack, and for good reason, but Dark, he had about 30% more drones than he needed to justify taking that base. And he's still sitting on a perfectly good economy. The only downside is the lack of tech. He's not going to have roach speed, he's not going to have 1-1. And round 2 coming up with the medevacs now. +1 infantry weapons about to complete. Knocks out the gold base yet again, but Dark has expanded to the left side. Baneling Nest only halfway done. Corrosive Bile knocks out one of the siege tanks and brings it down to 2. The drones are pulled off the line. And that means things are getting a lot more desperate. Whips out another wave of corrosive bile, knocks out a tank. He gets another, oh, not quite enough for another tank. Things thinning out on both sides. Almost knocks out the medevac. And wait a second, Oliveira on the way out gets boosted past, but get off my creep! Brenda, where's your friends? There can only be one. Almost all of the Dark is down to one queen, but so much infinitely better than none. And he drives back the push and hits the Terrans, well, so hard there might be for Oliveira. This is incredibly optimistic. Expanding on the low ground after you lost a fight seems like doubling down on a failed strategy. As Dark easily going to deal with this. Well, that's a pretty obvious cancel. The constant back and forth aggression. Neither player going to come up that ramp easily. Dark, though, is working on an infestation, but he's got 67 drones. And he's got 2-2 upgrades started. I don't even think Oliveira has an armory. He's been so focused on this 2-base production. It allows you to hit a little bit earlier. But the lack of economy behind it is starting to become very apparent. As even though Dark is relying on Roaches, Ravagers, and Zerglings, without speed, he forgot Zergling speed. No, he needed that 100 gas. For things. And also stuff. Well, down goes one queen. Cuts the count back down to... Well, the monarchy is dead. And a Liberator in a very uncomfortable position. He's dropping on... That's a bit optimistic. All the queens are dead, at least for now. But another Liberator over to the left side. And more drones gonna be popped. There were no Spore Crawlers, as since this wasn't a Banshee opener, the Liberator's a very strong choice, and he's going to be able to dodge most of the corrosive biles. Fighting the army on the ground. Dark, actually having a tough time replenishing his economy and not having any anti-air besides Ravagers in order to deal with Liberators, and with Medivacs is less than ideal. But the queens are being rebuilt. Zergling speed almost done. Dark almost in a... Oh, he doesn't have a hive on the way. I was going to say almost in a position to start Adrenal Glands right after Zergling speed. But now an army coming across the map. Army supplies are dangerously close to even. 71 to 81. Corrosive Bile clips one of the tanks, rolls in with the Banelings plus 2 Carapace. Isn't done yet, but he has the army here and now, and he really doesn't want to give up this base. But Oliveira, those Terran units so cost-effective, and the upgrades haven't kicked in yet. And the Ravager count thinning out. The Bio is as well, but as the numbers dwindle, the Medivacs become more and more effective, and suddenly Dark, with no real built-in anti-air, might be able to knock down one more Liberator. But how does he stop the rest of the push? The queens are coming down. The drones have retreated. Not called into the fight yet, though they may be again. Might be able to snipe off one of those siege tanks. Doesn't quite save it. Broodlings on top of the tank. 2 more Ravagers gunned down. And Dark, his army supply struggling. He can't get the Roach Ravager into position. Oliveira cut sharply through. Just barely the timing he needed. The queen's fighting the Liberator. They're not going to be enough. Another tank drops down. Another queen assassinated. The drones again. The drones are called into the fight. And again, they will be the end of it. The drones are just enough to draw the aggro away, but now Oliveira has a 3rd command center online. He's got a supply lead against a Roach Ravager. The only thing Dark has going for him now, the creep spread and the upgrades. And those aren't small things, especially with this sort of army composition. He needs to rebuild that queen count. 2 is, well, company, but we're looking for an overwhelming crowd here. Double drop loaded up. Oliveira, I think, correctly pinpointing the major weakness, which is any anti-air at all. The Liberator's at the right spot, and the Medivacs and the other ones have so far been enough. Oliveira going to try to keep control of Dark's economy until he can do another push. Ideally with +2/+2, but probably more towards maxing out. Hive is on the way. Dark double expanding. Well, he's got a macro hatch, I believe. No, wait. That's the other base. Liberator on the left side. And only 58 drones. It was great before, but Oliveira's caught up. And those Liberators slip away. The corrosive bout takes approximately 3 years in order to land. Oh, no, 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 not again! Susan! Well, better her than me. Liberator, 7 kills. And a queen. And so much of a blood pressure raise, but Oliveira now up 20 supply. Oh, well, he's held it together, and now he's crushing through. Dark scatters the corrosive vials like an unruly frat party, but the Liberator on the gold base. He's losing drones. He's losing ground. And the game, well, not there yet, but Dark struggled to fight this sort of army when he had 20 more army supply, and now he's lacking. The Baneling's gonna try to roll through corrosive bowels again, get a tank, get a couple medevacs. He always manages to catch so much with them. Another wave. Just throwing his trackball all over it. And another Liberator sieging up on the gold. Like, just making it rain. Unfortunately, the Liberator's a bit more precise with its damage. And more drones will fall. The hatchery goes down. Ravager's pulled in to deal with the Liberator, so he can actually mine from a 4th base, but Oliveira has a 4th and working on a 5th. And this has completely flipped. While Dark had map control and economy, he just never really dealt with the air units Oliveira was bringing. The timing never stopped, it just slowed down. And the corrosive vials are not going to be enough. 2-2's now done. 3-3's on the way for Dark, but the upgrades are not enough to counteract the positioning and the unit composition. He needs Vipers. Ideally Lurkers as well, but that's a dream. A single G. And Dark taps out of game 1. It's just not enough. Oliveira just immaculately... I was doubting the 2-base tank push. But he knew where his biscuit was buttered. And maintaining that position on the map, even though he didn't have the economy, keeping the pressure on and making sure Dark was never able to tech up. Taking out the queens, the backbone, and the front bone. Most of the bones of the Zerg economy taken down. And had reverberating consequences. Game 2, Amphion. That's the trouble with pulling the queens into the fight early on. If they don't live, and you have to rebuild them, one, you're rebuilding all that energy, anything that was left over. Queens don't start gaining energy until they pop out of the hatchery. I know, citation needed, but also, it really screws up your rhythm. You don't have the injects, you don't have the easy ability to replenish the creep, you don't have the built-in anti-air. And even some players get thrown off because they have certain ways they hotkey their queens, and when you have to rebuild them, it is a whole nother step of the process to add it back in. And I wouldn't say Dark is one of those players who gets easily flustered, which all the more testament to the strength of Oliveira's build and choice there. I think that's one of those games where usually Dark doesn't get punished for that. Like, most Terrans, even Clem, want to get like 3cc and get this baseline economy, but Oliveira picking that timing so early on really took the initiative back, and Dark was never able to get any of that map control that he drags from people in so many series. Well, we'll see if things change here on Amphion. As the first Reaper comes in, that employee entrance, and starts poking and prodding. Gets 1 ling so far. Queen. Bounced away. Reaper pops out. It's going to be... What? Did he spot it? There's just a command center over here. Now this is what I was talking about with the 3cc before starport. This is the Terran equivalent of building a couple queens and then expanding across the map. You're entirely reliant on those first Reapers, Hellions, and then eventually whatever starport unit you're able to put on the field in order to defend early on. You're vulnerable to early timings if the Zerg chooses to utilize them. But, of course, when you have the 111, the Barracks, the Factory, the Starport, Destiny Cloud Fist build, and I have heard whispers of, then you have technically access to every unit Terran could build. Of course, there's a few dozen asterisks there. Usually the Banshee has you covered, though. Roach Warren. Still only the one gas for Dark. He didn't go for speed. In fact, I think he just took that gas. So it was another 3 hatch before really investing in the gas, just making sure he has the option. Queen's poking and prodding. Hellions doing their thing, which is being, well, add it to the list of Terran units whose main strength is being infuriating to deal with. Be easier to make a list of units that aren't infuriating to deal with. Hellbat. The Viking. Oh my god, the Viking hits the Overlord. It's like, hey, wait a second. I'll be right with you. Snipes off the creep tuber on the other side. And that's extra annoying because now the queens are going to have to spread the creep again. It's a whole process. All right, there are 2 steps, which significantly more steps than your usual creep tumors. Are the Hellions hunting roaches? Oh my god. He's trying to body block the roaches in here. Ends up getting 1 Hellion, but successfully does so. And behind it, Oliveira with your full-on bio timing. We're looking at double engineering bay, double medevac. 3rd command center is done and lifted over to that kind of pocket side of the base, the mining DLC, where you have to mine through 10 minerals in order to get there. Same on dark side as well. But one of those maps that's split into kind of 2 halves. And by halves, I mean like a third and then another. You know what?
The numbers don't lie, and they
the numbers aren't important.
For you.
What is important is the positioning of the bases. And this base is very difficult for Dark to get to quickly and potentially punish with early road Ravager. Of course, you can go through the rocks, but it leaves you vulnerable to attack from other angles. So we'll see how Dark chooses to handle this. A double drop on the way. The Viking again cleared out all the overlords and will leave Dark in the himself when it comes to the medevacs on the way in. And oh, inopportune timing. The Queen's just moving out of the base. He suspected something like this, but the Queen Moot will congregate yet again. The roaches boxing out. The Evo chamber is making a little semi-wall to zone out the Hellions. I actually really like that. Not in a vulnerable position, but helpful. And, well, almost all. Go tell your friends what happened here. He's a Terran. He doesn't have friends. Okay, go tell your colleagues what happened here. Better, Barry, better. Double engineering bay, and Oliveira expanding to the center line base. Dark on an archaeological expedition to destroy all the rocks as Terrain and Terran share everything but I. And if you have a good pun for that, I can use in the next cast. After breaking the 4th wall in this one. Or maybe like 4 casts from now when people forget. I'd love it. Alright, I'll steal that one straight out of the comments and give no credit. And that's a promise. Like and subscribe. This SCV on a smoke break. Job's finished. Billy, get back over here. Again, though, Oliveira caught getting a bit gritty with the expansion. The rocks come in. Roaches on the right, roaches on the left. And the juicy Terran down the center. There's nothing at the natural whatsoever to defend. And the roaches are enough to actually cut through the... That's... What? What? And he just wins? Okay. Dark just backhands Oliveira out of the game with the two-pronged roach attack. Alright. Well. There just wasn't enough there. Oliveira was still building up all his infrastructure. And that's the downside of taking that base, is if they do come through the rocks and you're not in position, well, like, it's not that hard to kill a supply depot. Maybe for Zerglings, but not for Roach Ravager. Oliveira this time around getting a bit too greedy himself, and that ties us up kind of unceremoniously and somewhat abruptly. Bringing it to game 3. Well, he just kind of died to the old Stefano hold down the RT 200 supply Roach Ravager. When you're reliant entirely on siege tank positioning, that is a remarkably easy thing to have happen. Most Terrans, the ones that you're seeing featured in these top tier games, do not have that happen often, because otherwise they wouldn't be top Terrans. But siege tanks, while incredible units, do take a surprising amount of finesse, and when you just leave them out in the open like that. Usually Oliveira is very diligent about his tanks. Sometimes the simplest strategies are the most effective, though. Just hit them with like 50 supply of roaches on 2 different sides. Done. 3 hatch again. Dark actually scouted for a proxy Rex. But 3 hatch before gas. Dark seems to be enjoying this very mineral heavy style. And honestly, I think it could have worked out in game 1. It's just the rush distance and probably a bit underprepared for... Don't quote me on that. Well, he's got a bunker... Oh no, don't lose that Ovi. Oliveira went reactor first, no Reaper. And that is why this Overlord... Oh, not even close! But that Overlord has about 6 seconds to live. Did he see the bunker? But the fact that the Marines are still... He's gonna lift the command center, obviously. Like... I see you. But that gave Dark time to build another couple Ovies. And the bunker rush... If that Ovi hadn't lived, the Marines would already be walking across the map towards the bunker. And this could go from an optimistic annoyance to a real and present danger. But instead, Dark just cleans it because of that Overlord's heroic efforts of sponging as many bullets as possible. He's just walking around with Marines. So Dark hasn't been going Zergling speed. I think this is Oliveira adapting. If they don't have Ling speed, what are they going to do to stop your Marines? If it's not a Roach all-in, like, some Zerglings will get lined up and immolated. Oliveira with another 2-base timing. Is there going to be an armory? Is this just straight up Hellions? Roach one's almost done. Dark really needs that to be done. Third command center's on the way on the low ground. Acknowledging that he has map control right now. He's gonna do the 2-prong. Boost the medevac away. And 5 roaches in production. Well, I think 5 popped out, and now a bunch of Hellions into the natural. Oh no, the Roach got in the way of the Evo chamber. Now the Marines are in the main as well. Only 3 drones thus far. The Queen's having a pretty tough time, but a transfuse on the Roach goes for the medevac. Got it. The Queen's still struggling. 7 drones so far. The citizens arrest on the Hellions. The Queen's Susan! The Queen's dying again, but 8 drones for a medevac, 6 Hellions, and 8 Marines, which is pretty much everything Oliveira built in the first 5 minutes of the game. In fact, Bekinobi has 2 Marines, which, and this is true, not very much. We're going to be in a very similar scenario to Game 1. But this time, Dark cleaned up the push, such as it was, very quickly. And, so quickly that now Oliveira semi-panicking with 2 bunkers at the natural. He should be able to fill them up. He's going to have a siege tank momentarily, but he can actually take down the depot wall here. The SCVs will be pulled to defend. He's just going to fight them. Take down 3 SCVs, a Ravager or 2 on the way. And there's the siege tank. Looks like he'll get 1 more depot. Ooh, target fires down the Ravager cocoon. And Dark will back up. He's at 66 drones now. Which means if he builds any more, I'm going to become very concerned. Stop. Stop with the drones. You don't need more drones. You need more units, Dark. The bunkers are salvaged. Oh, he scanned. He saw double gas and so many drones. He knows Dark is not hitting him right now. He knows that to have all of that, well, he's probably not built another few dozen roaches, at least not yet. So the bunkers are unnecessary. You get 75 minerals back, minus a 25 mineral restocking fee. So Oliveira's safe enough to take his 3rd. Whereas Dark is happy to let him have it, as long as he gets a 4th and then some. More roaches on the way. Zergling speed, roach speed. +1 ranged attacking carapace. Oliveira will have a quicker +1 infantry weapons. His armor's around the same time. He's getting that armory. So not as locked in to the lower tech, but instead progressing to a more standard mid-game with plenty of production. Gold base is done. And now the Roach Ravager throws out the corrosive bile. Oliveira reacts. Double drop loaded up. Rock's already taken down. Road speed finished. And Oliveira playing the hokey pokey with the Marines here. Where are you gonna drop? Put him in the medevac, take him out of the medevac, put him in the medevac again. Alright, let's drop a clock. No infestation pit yet out of Dark. Probably the more lacking of options. He's looking to max out on Roach Ravager. Wow, look at the supply. A dozen roaches. And he's at 190. He's maxed out at 820. And remember, he lost drones. He lost drones. He spent some time going across the map. This isn't even... Wow. 8.5 minutes. But Oliveira has quite a setup. He's working on 2-2, as is Dark, but quite a spread here. Can't believe it's not butter. The Zerglings, not quite enough to kill one of the tanks. Corrosive Bow coming through. That double drop on its way back. And oh my. The supply... He opened up the depots, which actually funneled some more of the units, and now the Terran army is outflanking the Ravagers. What a move by Oliveira, using the AI of the units on the depots in order to mitigate even more of the damage. He let them in eventually, which actually funneled them more into the tanks and made it a bit easier to clean it up. So Dark, the old adage of attacking up a ramp into siege tanks, once again holds true. He still has the supply, but Oliveira has more than enough army on the field right now with plenty of medevacs in support to continue forward. And a lot of Dark's army is still in the mail and not been delivered out of the production tab. Those siege tanks now in range of the gold base. He can retreat with the drones. The worker count is nearly even. In fact, Oliveira has a slight lead. Coming down that ramp, he doesn't even have enough Ravagers to corrosive bow the tanks. He's coming down a single ramp. Here come the Queens. Takes out one tank. Looking for more. More Ravagers joining the fray. Corrosive bow on the back line. Here come some Liberators as they continue to brawl it out. That one siege tank on the high ground, dodging the shots with the medevacs, and the siege tanks have survived. And Brenda, no! Get back to the creep! My legs! Oh, wait, that's just off creep. All right, I didn't get shot or anything. Yet. I don't... Sorry. Oliveira with a great trade. The fact he didn't lose really any SCVs to the initial attack. Dark does not have an infestation pit. He does not have any further tech past these 2-2 upgrades. And unfortunately, Oliveira also has those upgrades completed. So, he is on borrowed time up here against Oliveira. He started the infestation pit. But the closer they get to 200 supply, the stronger the Terran army will be in comparison. So Dark needs to make some very tough decisions here. I don't really see a path of just sitting back and defending against a maxed out Terran with equal upgrades. Because your army just isn't as good. You have to be trading in some fashion. And the Liberators are the Venn diagram of freedom, covering this entire mineral line. More spores on the way. Hatchery, Dark 201 supply for a moment. Hatchery is canceled though. The Liberators, driven back by the spores as the Queens voice their displeasure. And we have a Ghost Academy on the way. Scan spots the hive. I don't know if he saw it starting. But he sees it building, which gives him all the information he needs. Because now Oliveira's maxed out, and there's not going to be any Vipers. Which means there's no reason to stop pushing forward. Oh, wow. That's a lot of Terran. He's got +3 infantry weapons and +2 mech on the way. Dark. He's coming down the ramp again. That's so many Zerglings getting on top of things. The Ravager's doing a good job of clearing out the back line, but there's so many more lines drawn behind it. Dark is mowed down, and there's not enough reinforcements to overwhelm the push. The Ravagers are easily taken out. Still half a dozen tanks. He doesn't care about the creep. Come closer. Go ahead. Oliveira, with just a devastating set of tank pushes, will take games 1 and 3 and take the series. Which brings us smoothly into our bonus series. I promised you even more Dark, but Oliveira with a decisive set of tank timings. But we'll see if Dark can maybe beat up some Americans. And while I'd volunteer, good thing we have Astrea here to take my place. Another best of 3, our bonus anti-spoiler series. Like and subscribe if you like more good games for the fans. Or maybe I should just split them up into more videos so I can draw out the content. Anyways. Oceanborn. Ocean Man. Let's see. Astrea, well, we're shifting into Zerg versus Protoss, but Oliveira with those tank timings. That's a major weakness of the Roach Ravager style. It's part of the reason it's become a staple of Zerg versus Terran is almost every Terran goes Hellions. And even Oliveira did last game, but the Zerglings are very larva intensive and not nearly a guarantee to defend against Hellions. Whereas Roaches are much more consistent against them, as well as having the option for Ravagers to take out siege tanks. Problem is, if you're angling towards an anti-Roach composition so early on, they just don't do as well at 200 supply. 200 supply of Roaches does not stack up against 200 supply of almost any other army in the game, to be honest. The entire point is, aptly named, those Roaches, you can have so many of them so early that you overwhelm. But Oliveira handled that about as perfectly as I've ever seen anyone handle the push. He adapted from game 2. But we'll see if Astrea Dark has done some very, very, disrespectful builds against Astrea in the past. I'm not sure it will be, I'm not sure that was the end of it the last time we saw it. Just trying to come up with a nice way to say I want to see Astrea get cheesed into oblivion. But Dark, well known for historically being very unforgiving towards players he deemed inferior to him, which is pretty much all of them, but not as pronounced as in the past. But like in GSL, just cheesing especially foreign players out in the first round with like 2 roach all-ins. Now he just does that to Maru as well, so the more times change, the more they stay the same. But that's a robotics facility. There you go. I wasn't lying. That's what it's not like any of those other circular energy crystal thingies. This one is weird. Why? Because he's doing... It's a warp prism. But why is it a warp prism? What is he doing? What are you gonna do with a warp prism? He's got a sentry, so there's a small chance of maybe doing like a force field on the ramp, but Immortals? Like, you build Immortals after? Because it can't just be for picking up a sentry. Where are you going? He has 2 gates. What? This is the weirdest Oracle I've ever seen. Okay. He has 2 Adepts and a Prism now. He's just doing an Oracle cosplay with 2 Adepts and a Prism. I guess he could warp it a couple more, but he can do the alley-oop pickup, which is certainly... Well, here we are. The Spore's done, but because he has that Prism, he can just zoop right in there. This is certainly original. Is it worth it? Because he doesn't have a 3rd on the way either. There's Immortals and charge lots behind. The Prism has been put in the corner. Brenda put the Prism in the corner. And now it's kind of stuck there. Well. It's stuck on the edge of things. Huh. 6 more gates on the way as another 2 base timing is headed towards Dark. It's going to be Charge Lot Immortal, which is about as close as you could get to a 2 base tank. He transfused a drone. Check that off your bingo cards. Get out of! Well, he killed 3 more, and he should, maybe? Well. I'm just gonna leave the Prism there? Okay. Huh. I have no idea. I feel like there's no middle ground with this. Either it's going to be uncharacteristic. He's expecting DTs, maybe, with zoning spores. Or maybe he expected DTs and built spores in other locations and now realizes that's not the case. Overseer about to spot it. Charging +1. Astrea thinking about a 3rd base, but... Huh. So, it's going to be 3 Immortals, 14 charge lots. He's gonna have +1. There's a bunch of Ravagers and Roaches already on the field. They're warping in some more sentries, which force field a temporary boon for the Protoss, but I'm not convinced it's going to be a... No. Alright. The Immortals force fields to lock in some of this, but he uses Ravager cocoons. Now the force fields seem to be hurting more than helping. It's kind of... Well, Some more Ravagers pop out. Knocks one out. Those Immortals are still standing strong. You can't underestimate this army. Dark keeps bouncing right to the edge of the creep and back, because having that extra maneuverability is all the difference. Those Immortals outrange the Roaches. Roach speed is about to complete. There's not that much energy on the sentries. Is he really going to jam in there? The charge lots acting as biological force fields to an extent. He's segmenting off enough of the Roaches, but the supply gap is widening. There's still 3 Immortals. Corrosive Bile. He actually hits one of the Immortals, but Barrier was off cooldown. Still some Zealots in the mineral line. Hold position. The slow-moving fight, but Astrea's starting to make some progress. If he can focus just on Roaches, Dark is pretty much run out of Zerglings. And Ravagers are not armored units, so they don't take bonus damage from Immortals. But without the Zerglings to draw fire, the Immortals all have good targets. If he gets the Warp Prism, then the push ends. But it will continue. Ooh, those Immortals. Not quite in Zoop range of the Prism. But those Roaches really starting to take big hits. Astrea... it's very tenuous. Losing an Immortal, though, certainly won't help. That is a precious, precious unit here. 12 kills, 15 kills on the Immortals. The Zealots continue to be warped in. The main base is going to start mining out of at least some of the mineral patches momentarily. He's going for the Prism, but Astrea able to dodge it. Zoops the Immortals. And Dark. Well, did he get it? And that's that. A big greedy rewarping and GG. Dark holds. But it was a close thing there. Astrea just not quite sharp enough on the timing. I think if the Ghetto Oracle Warp Prism pressure had been just mildly more successful, it could have been this sort of awkward timing where he's actually able to kill him. But points for originality, but no points in the series. As we go into game number 2 on Site Delta. Still dangerous. There are so many 2-base timings that if you just slightly overdrone a Zerg, you very much can die. As Dark barely holding on there. Well. That's not your base, sir. Dark is double expanding to both naturals. The double naturary build. No intent of completing this. Well, I imagine no intent of completing this, but... He's gonna slap his way through. Chrono boosting out a second Zealot. Usually the response is to pull 4 or 5 probes with the Zealot to make sure it doesn't finish. I wonder if Astrea wants it to finish and he thinks that's better for him. Because at this rate, well, I guess a second Zealot will finish it in time. Dark is certainly going to cancel it at that last moment. I'm not sure the math on this. Emotionally, it feels like it's worth it. Let it finish, Dark. I don't know if he tried to slap an Evo chamber in there, but... Now there's an Adept on the way across. Not like Dark has a massive economy here. The Zealots will... They're chasing the drone instead of going across the map, which feels like a waste of their talents. Then again, having a melee warrior that is slower than pretty much everything else in the game besides Queens off a creep also seems like a... maybe a bit of a design flaw. But... The Zealots are now coming across, but I think any window that they could have combined with the Adept and gotten damage done has closed. It's long gone. There's plenty of Zerglings, there's Queens. And there's still a drone in the main. Twilight and Robo on the way. Where are we going with this? I have no idea. It's going to be another original game, to say the least. Adept glaives. All right. "50 shades with glaives. Zergling speed is about to complete. That is a pylon wall, which means it is vulnerable to dying to Zerglings. In fact, he's can he actually get 3 attacks off with the Zerglings if he does that? He's jamming. Oh, pulls the probes. That's an interesting choice. Astrea, well, I mean, the Stalker dies, and he loses 4 probes. Huh. I feel like Dark has the same reaction I do to walling off with a pylon, which is, ew. Can't handle it. There is some element of it that is just bait for the Zerg, I think. You see that pylon wall, and you feel like you need to take advantage of it. Though, killing a Stalker and 4 probes, I think, was worth it. But now we have the Adepts on the way. Wait, he warped in Stalkers. Astrea is trying his alternative Stargate builds today. Dark, does he even realize those are glaive Adepts? They're kind of slicing through. If they weren't glaive, those Zerglings should have been enough. But in yet another weird and confusing engagement, Astrea will maintain a tenuous victory. Though he's a bit supply blocked and he can't warp in anymore, which is certainly not ideal. The Queens take out a Stalker and will retreat after a slight bout of murder. A Spore Crawler in front, anticipating Dark Templar, but there are none to be found. Astrea has not made a shrine to his opponent. That is a lot of Adepts, but he decides to cancel the Shade in order to fight the Roaches head on. Try to whittle down that count. So far, so good. Adept Shade canceled again. That Warp Prism timing. 3rd base on the way. Dark actually had 37 drones to 39 probes. So, no real problems right now for Astrea. And he knows he was at the 3rd base. There's nothing mining there. Dark can't even saturate his 2nd base quite yet. Okay, maybe. Oh, he transferred from the main. The Adepts. Yeah, that's a very dead drone. So, now what? Dark is struggling economically, but he has plenty of supply on the field to zone out any more attacks. Filling in a bunch of drones. The Zerglings sliced to pieces by those Adepts. Immortals at the back. The Roach Ravager, the Observer sees it. Roach speed is a long way off. Lair isn't even done. So, almost as long as you can get. Slowly but surely, the Ravagers and Roaches are heading across the map. And, well, how many Adepts? 17 Adepts and 2 Immortals. Finds the army. Plenty of sentries. No basic upgrades for either side. Zergling speed and Adept Glaives are the only upgrades out there right now. One dozen more drones. Oh my god, this is throwing me off so much. This is so weird. Usually, points for originality across the board, because Protoss versus Zerg is usually one of those matchups, is the matchup you can cast for like 4 minutes straight, blindfolded, and still be pretty confident you know where the game is. But neither of these games has been anything close to that standard. We're finding ourselves in a much more standard mid game. Ravager Ling into Banelings up against Immortals and All these adepts are certainly creating an interesting scenario. 4 immortals, 20 adepts, 7 sentries up against Ravagerling Bane. But no roach speed, no Bane speed, and minimal creep. The tickle beams will take down the overlords eventually. And Dark is actually supply blocked here, though Astrea willing to help him out with that. How generous. 16 more Banelings. Double Immortal. Yanked up into the Prism. Headed for the main. Robo Bay and Blink alongside +1 behind. I don't think Dark even has an Evo chamber. No. He is focused on that unit composition. I think he's going to try to crush with 200 supply as soon as possible, instead of going into a more advanced sort of tech army. Because Dark's army doesn't really age very well. Banelings ideally don't age at all. So he wants to get the damage done as soon as possible and wield as much of a supply advantage before that Protoss army gets to be even more dangerous. As the Adepts against this magnitude of Banelings, he's going to have 40 Banelings. Well, here come the Zerglings. Gonna open things up. The force fields, you shall not pass unless you come in from the backside, in which case it's gonna go perfectly fine. 12 probes dead to the first run by, though the force fields will block out the main army. Astrea, the army's still holding for now. The Ravager throwing out the corrosive bow, but Dark just angles in, tries to shove in towards the backside of the base. More probes dead. Corrosive bow landing in the midst of the army. Takes out a few more adepts. There goes the Nexus. That seemed important. Colossus comes down, but far too little and arguably too late. Colossi won't hurt against this composition, though it is an interesting place to be going Colossi. I think he wanted to thin out the Zerglings, but there's actually very few of them left over. A lot of them just morphing into Banes. You get your money back, though, if they don't complete. At least 3/4 of it. Dark is working on a 4th base, and he's up to 67 drones, though. So it's all he needs to do is defend. Astrea now needs to get some damage done. Otherwise, the same thing is going to happen again. And it's going to be even worse. Brendan, no! Yeah, get it! Get the Prism! The Spore Crawler helping to fight against the Colossus. May take it down on its own. Gonna be helped by the Ravagers. Force field blunks forward. Astrea just going for it. It's do or die time, but I think the second one is more likely. Surrounding that. Wait, he got the Prism! Oh, 1 kill! In Dark. 2-0. Though definitely an entertaining series, as both players coming up with almost entirely original situations. Maybe not original strategies, but we found ourselves in places I don't think I've ever quite seen before. But Dark adapts well enough to come through against Astrea's sharp timings, even though Oliveira proved that his are even sharper. Well, that's enough edginess for me today. But thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you to Wardy for putting on the weekly tournaments, and thank you to you for watching. And if you got the means of motivation, it'd be awesome to check out Patreon or YouTube membership. But I hear liking and subscribing is still free, at least for now. So I hope I made your day just a little bit better, and I hope to see you next time. Good luck, have fun, stay chill.